The regulation height of a basketball hoop is 10 feet, but despite what the general public assumes, the vast majority of basketball rims are not exactly 10 feet. Even at the NBA level, it's not uncommon for a rim to be slightly off. On the podcast All the Smoke, Steven Jackson recently mentioned how the New York Knicks rims were always low.
And the Knicks goal is really 8.5, 9 feet. That ain't 10 feet. This is how I know.
Yeah.
I play in all these arenas, but in warm-ups in the Knicks, I'm dunking backwards. Everywhere else, ain't none of that going on.
So how tall is it? Like 8.5, 9?
It's about 8.5.
Oh, so you tell me
If I can dunk backwards, it's about 8.5.
So you saying what I was doing was easy?
It was too easy. It was cheap.
It's very common for an NBA player to be the one that points out when a hoop isn't regulation. First instance I heard of a player doing this was former Knicks forward Bill Bradley. Said to always be concerned with rim height, he was known to rather accurately predict the height of a basket just by shooting on it. There's a famous Players Tribune article where former NBA guard Gerald Henderson recalls the time in pregame shoot-around where Kobe Bryant detected that one of the rims was low by 1/4 of an inch. Maintenance was called in and upon remeasuring it confirmed that it was indeed low by that exact margin. Sometimes the rim can even be off the mark on the most important NBA games of the year. For instance, last year in Game 3 of the NBA Finals, someone on the Warriors noticed that their basket was 2 inches higher than 10 feet. Many times this isn't even the fault of the maintenance crew that sets the courts up. Just throughout the course of a game, a rim can get bent or lowered. Last year, Luka Doncic realized in the middle of a game that the rim was bent. Another time on JJ Redick's podcast, him and Kyrie Irving talked about how they played on a crooked rim.
My first observation from the game, actually, the one rim was so crooked. The one you guys shot at in the first half and the one we shot at in the second half.
The stats seem to back up their claims, with both teams collectively shooting under 40% on the crooked rim and over 50% on the other rim. In 2018, a basket tech raised one of the hoops after Kyle Lowry had noticed it lowered during halftime. Then midway through the third, officials stopped the game after Lowry realized that the rim was now too high.
I was shooting the baskets was off earlier. Our basket tech said the rims were too low, and they popped them up too high. So luckily we got the adjustment and got done.
For all the times players notice a rim being low makes me wonder how often it gets overlooked. Do I believe most NBA rims are exactly 10 feet? Yes. But with so many factors involved, it's inevitable that the NBA baskets won't always be exactly 10 feet. Like Steve Kerr has said,
it happens every once in a while, you know.
I measured 100 basketball rims for this project, and only 13 were exactly 10 feet, with the average rim height being slightly under 9 feet 11 inches. The high school and college facilities averaged out at 9'11 1/4. 20% of these rims were exactly 10 feet and not one being more than 2 inches off 10. On average, the public facilities were around 9'10 3/4, with only 10% being on exactly 10 feet and 20% being more than 2 inches off. So if most hoops aren't 10 feet, how can you determine when a dunk counts and when it doesn't? To mitigate this, everyone in the dunk community has a cutoff height for what they view as acceptable. The idea behind this is that if you can hit a dunk an inch or two off 10, that it's not past the imagination that you could hit it on exactly 10 feet. And depending on the crowd or event, might even be able to do it better. Typically, this has always been 9 feet 10 inches. Anything lower than that was considered a low rim and didn't count. Of all the professional dunkers I've reached out to from America and overseas, the overwhelming majority confirmed this. Many of you might be asking, how much of a difference can that 1 inch really make? According to many pro dunkers,
a lot. It doesn't sound like much, but 3 inches makes a big difference. Completely different.
I've seen people in the dunk community refer to 9'9 goals as baby rims, cheat codes, and even a different sport. There's absolutely nothing wrong with dunking on low rims. It's actually very much encouraged to anybody starting out since it's a great way to improve jump technique, coordination, and can even add a significant amount of vertical. So what's the problem?
Tell me about a downside.
Nothing wrong with them as long as you post the rim height.
As I covered earlier, the general audience assumes most rims are 10. So if someone posts them dunking on a low rim and doesn't say it anywhere in the video title or description, the hoop can be almost a foot off 10 feet and most will still think it's legitimate. For example, just recently, Team Flight Brothers made a point not to list these dunks were on 9'3", successfully fooling most everyone in the comments into believing it's a legitimate goal. Generally, most don't view it as a big deal if someone dunks on 9'9 and doesn't list the height every single time, since everyone in the space has been guilty of doing this at one point or another. But it becomes a big problem when someone intentionally seeks out low rims to hit a new dunk or achievement they couldn't do on regulation, or to falsely advertise a jump program or a product. Surprisingly, this wasn't much of a problem until the last 6 years or so, because early on pro dunkers had nothing to gain from lying about their ability on 10 feet, since their main form of income was performing at live events, whether it be doing dunks in games or competing in dunk contests. Then as professional dunking progressed, there developed a respect when it came to hitting new dunks, since it was understood that certain dunks can take weeks, months, and sometimes even years of training to be able to hit.
Perfect.